Hi, I'm Scott Volpenheim, Director of Marketing at ERP Suites. I'm here with Mark Zink, and we're going to talk about analytics today.
Thanks, Scott. Look forward to the conversation.
So we deal with a lot of JD Edwards Enterprise One at ERP Suites. How would you categorize the way they're using the data today?
Enterprise One as a platform it offers considerable amount of tools. They're really good tool sets. JD Edwards has long had a report writer. It's long had data conversion or table conversion tool sets. But most of that has been kind of limited to very fundamental style reports. Columnar, tabular, group bys. About as complex as the traditional report writing would be as some of the financial reports. And so you've got some folks out there still relying on JD Edwards development to kind of create their management level needs. Some folks or some organizations have taken to creating a data extraction out and using more of their traditional desktop tools to kind of create ultimately a reporting package for management. So that's kind of the old school, if you will. So they're trying their best to leverage as much as they possibly can out of tool sets that have been delivered to them from Oracle. And not necessarily a bad strategy at the time, for sure.
Yep.
So there's a lot of IT energy to do that. So you kind of sit in the queue, you wait for your request, you sit down with the folks in IT to develop what your requirements are and what your output needs are and things of that nature. So that's one element. There's other elements where maybe IT is backlogged, log jammed, their priority isn't the same as yours, or whatever.
Sounds like that happens all the time.
Quite a bit. Yeah, it does. Or for that matter, maybe it just wasn't envisioned as part of the next upcoming year, so it really wasn't a project or wasn't a particular need identified that, the performance plans and things like that are arranged around. So in that case, you take to a lot of Band-Aid solutions. The usual suspects are, spreadsheet kind of analysis, Access. Microsoft has introduced Power BI into the conversation that you can do some fairly sophisticated analysis on your desktop, as well as within their platform. Some companies have said, maybe we can use kind of point solutions for specific departments. Like I spoke earlier, there's very specific tools out there in JD Edwards ecosystem for financial folks to be able to get the data that they need, present it in a way that makes the most sense, efficiently close the books or quarter, things of that nature. They're out there. And you've got a few third-party tools that are really very, very much dependent upon creating and filling that ERP style development, than to bringing it more into the end user being able to create content. So that's kind of happened. I would say generally speaking, what I see is those tool sets are kind of specifically marketed at certain departments, which I just mentioned. And they, in turn, are once again kind of creating their own siloed approaches and processes and ideas, and they're kind of independently coming up with their own set of data and own set of insights that may or may not be replicated next month, next quarter, next year. With resources where they're at today, may not necessarily be available next year or the year following. So the individual that used to have really good understandings of your organization, maybe an individual that gets promoted, may get moved to another department, or maybe lost in the organization, and that would be a risk. So I think that generally occurs. So there are some other folks out there that took the approach a while back and went and used business objects or tools. Basically, we're using branded tools, business objects or Cognos or something like that. And so they've got very specific, potentially data marts with isolated islands of very specific data that use to serve a given purpose. And not unlike ERP packages and not unlike our primary business systems, those take process, rigor, discipline, and time to nurture. And so some of those folks who were really wise about those kinds of traditional data warehousing type solutions probably moved on from the organization. So these kinds of analytics are either like I don't understand anymore, or a new person is in, they can't really understand how maybe an individual had done this a decade ago. So some of those things have kind of lost their energy, and they've kind of lost their confidence in the organization and lost their investment. So not that they were all bad approaches, these are just how folks had approached these. So I still see that the industry is challenged by trying to create a unified voice of an organization. But I think what the message I want to bring forth more than anything else is not only just a unified understanding of ERP data, but then to connect that to a much broader understanding of data that are data producers that we can leverage as a strategic value. So to even contemplate using website analytics or to contemplate using images as data would have never been part of any of those solutions in the past. So now we're kind of moving much further along technically wise. So some of those tool sets just simply haven't kept up. The resources haven't kept up, and they just don't scale very well. For smaller organizations, that's maybe the way you survive. If you really want to gain a competitive edge, I would say it's probably a good time to start reflecting on your overall data strategy.